The rain fell hard on the empty streets of the small town. It was almost midnight, and the autumn wind was cold and sharp. Most people were already in their warm homes, eating dinner or sleeping in their beds. But Park Tae-ho was still walking. He had just finished his work at the car garage. His hands were dirty with oil, and his back hurt from bending over engines all day. He was 34 years old, and he had been fixing cars since he was 18. It was honest work, but it was hard work. Tonight he was very tired. Tae-ho walked slowly through the rain. He did not have an umbrella. He never carried one because he always forgot them somewhere. His old leather jacket was getting wet, but he did not mind. He had walked in rain many times before. The streets were quiet and dark. Only a few streetlights worked in this part of town. Most of the buildings here were old or empty. There was a construction site nearby that had been abandoned for 2 years. Nobody came here at night. That is why Tae-ho was surprised when he saw something moving near the construction site wall. At first, he thought it was a dog. Stray dogs often hid in places like this to escape the rain. But as he walked closer, he saw that it was not a dog. It was too big to be a dog, but too small to be an adult person. Tae-ho stopped walking. He looked more carefully through the rain. It was a child. A small child was sitting against the wall, with knees pulled up to the chest. The child was shaking very badly, like a leaf in the wind. Tae-ho felt his heart become heavy. What was a child doing here alone at midnight in the rain? Where were the parents? He walked toward the child slowly, not wanting to scare them. "Hey!" he called out softly. "Hey! Are you okay?" The child looked up, and Tae-ho stopped breathing. The face that looked back at him was not human. The skin was pale blue like the color of a winter sky. The eyes were very large and completely dark, with no white part at all. The child had no hair, just smooth skin on the head. And when the child raised a hand to shield from the rain, Tae-ho saw only 4 fingers. For a moment, Tae-ho could not move. His mind was trying to understand what he was seeing. This was not possible. This was something from movies, from stories, from dreams. But the creature in front of him was real. He could see the rain falling on its blue skin. He could see it shaking from the cold. The alien child made a small sound of fear. It tried to move away, pressing its back harder against the wall. Its large dark eyes were filled with terror. It looked at Tae-ho like he was a monster. Tae-ho realized that he must look scary to this child. He was a tall man, standing in the dark, with rain dripping from his face. The child did not know if he was dangerous. Slowly, very slowly, Tae-ho raised both his hands to show he meant no harm. He took a small step back to give the child more space. "It is okay," he said quietly. His voice was gentle, the same voice he used when he talked to scared animals. "I will not hurt you." The child did not understand his words, of course, but it seemed to understand his tone. It stopped trying to crawl away, though it was still shaking badly. Tae-ho looked at the child more carefully. It was wearing some kind of thin silver clothing, like a jumpsuit. The material looked advanced, nothing like any fabric Tae-ho had ever seen. But it was clearly not made for cold weather. The child was freezing. Tae-ho thought about what to do. He could call the police, but what would they do? He could call the hospital, but this was not a human child. He did not know how to help an alien. He did not even know if aliens were real until 30 seconds ago. But one thing was simple and clear. This child was cold, very, very cold. Without thinking too much, Tae-ho began to take off his jacket. The leather was old and worn, but it was thick and warm. His mother had given it to him 10 years ago, before she passed away. It was his favorite jacket, and he wore it almost every day. The alien child watched him with wide eyes, not understanding what he was doing. Tae-ho moved slowly. He did not want to scare the child again. He knelt down on the wet ground, feeling the cold water soak through his pants. He was now at the same height as the child. Very gently, he reached out and placed the jacket over the child's small shoulders. The child flinched at first, but then it felt the warmth. Its shaking became a little less. Its dark eyes looked at the jacket, then looked at Tae-ho. There was confusion in those eyes and something else, something like wonder. Tae-ho gave a small smile. He bowed his head slightly, the way his grandmother taught him to show respect. "Stay warm," he said softly. Then he stood up and walked away. He did not look back. He did not know why he did not look back. Maybe he was afraid that if he looked, he would see that it was all a dream. Maybe he was afraid that if he stayed, he would not know what to do next. The rain was colder now without his jacket. Tae-ho wrapped his arms around himself and walked faster toward home. His mind was full of questions, but his heart was strangely calm. He had seen something impossible tonight. He had met a being from another world. But in the end, that being was just a scared child who was cold and alone. And Tae-ho knew what it was like to be cold and alone. Behind him, still sitting against the wall, the alien child named Ven clutched the leather jacket tightly. The warmth was spreading through his small body. The smell of the jacket was strange but comforting. It smelled like oil and rain and something else, something he did not have a word for. On his home planet, the Vellani people had a belief. They believed that giving your personal covering to a stranger was the highest act of kindness. It meant you valued their warmth more than your own. It meant you would protect them, even if it cost you something. Ven was young, but he knew this teaching well. His father had taught him since he was very small. This human, this strange creature with only 5 fingers and small eyes, had given his covering without asking for anything. He had not even waited for thanks. He had just walked away into the rain, getting colder so that Ven could be warm. Ven held the jacket tighter and made a promise in his heart. He would find this human again, and he would make sure his people knew what this human had done. Among the Vellani, such a debt could never go unpaid. Tae-ho woke up to a strange sound. At first, he thought he was dreaming. There was a low humming noise coming from somewhere outside his apartment door. It was not like any sound he had heard before. It was deep and steady, like a machine, but also somehow alive. He sat up in bed and rubbed his eyes. Sunlight was coming through his small window. The rain had stopped sometime during the night. He looked at his phone. It was 7 in the morning. The humming sound continued. Tae-ho got out of bed slowly. He was still wearing his clothes from last night. He had been so tired when he got home that he just fell onto his bed without changing. His shirt was dry now, but it smelled like rain. For a moment, he wondered if last night had really happened. Had he really seen an alien child in the rain? Had he really given his jacket to a creature from another world? It seemed impossible now, in the morning light. But his jacket was gone. He always hung it by the door, and the hook was empty. The humming sound grew louder. Tae-ho walked to his front door. His apartment was small and old. The walls were thin, and he could usually hear everything that happened in the hallway. But this sound was different. It seemed to come from everywhere at once. He reached for the door handle, then stopped. What if something dangerous was outside? What if the aliens had come to hurt him because he had seen too much? But Tae-ho was not a man who ran from things. He had faced many hard times in his life. He had lost his parents when he was young. He had worked hard jobs to survive. He had been alone for many years. Fear was something he knew well, but he never let it control him. He opened the door. 3 figures stood in the narrow hallway of his apartment building. 2 of them were tall, much taller than any human Tae-ho had ever seen. They wore smooth black armor that seemed to absorb the light. Their faces were hidden behind dark helmets. They stood very still like statues, but Tae-ho could feel them watching him. The 3rd figure was different. This one was older, with pale blue skin covered in thin lines and patterns. The lines looked like they were made of silver, and they glowed softly. The elder wore long robes of deep purple, decorated with symbols Tae-ho did not recognize. And between these 3 tall aliens, looking small and nervous, stood the child from last night. The child was still wearing Tae-ho's jacket. Tae-ho stared. He did not know what to say. He did not know if he should bow, or run, or close the door. So he just stood there, looking at the aliens in his hallway. The elder raised one 4-fingered hand in a gesture of peace. Then in a voice that was rough but understandable, the elder spoke in Korean. "Human," the elder said. "You are Park Tae-ho?" Tae-ho's mouth was very dry. "Yes," he managed to say. "That is me." The elder bowed deeply. The 2 guards bowed as well, their armor making soft clicking sounds as they moved. "I am called Rael," the elder said. "I speak for the Vellani people. We come with great purpose. The child, Ven, looked up at Tai-ho with those large dark eyes. There was no fear in them now. Instead, there was something like hope. Tai-ho tried to think of something intelligent to say, something that would make sense in this impossible situation. But all he could manage was, "How do you know Korean?" Rail made a sound that might have been a laugh. "We have watched your world for many cycles. Your languages are in our learning machines. But speaking is harder than listening. Please forgive my poor words." "Your words are fine," Tai-ho said. His brain was starting to work again. "Why are you here?" Rail gestured to the child. "This young one is Ven. He is the son of our High Council leader. He became lost during a science journey. A door between worlds opened in the wrong place, and he fell through. We searched for him through the dark of space. We feared we had lost him forever." Tai-ho looked at the child. A council leader's son. That was like a president's son, or maybe a king's son. This small, shivering child was important. "He was alone in the rain," Tai-ho said simply. "He was cold." "Yes," Rail said. The elder's voice became very serious. "And you gave him your covering. You gave him warmth from your own body. You walked into the cold so that he could be warm." "It was just a jacket," Tai-ho said, feeling embarrassed. "He needed it more than me." Rail shook his head slowly. "Among our people, such an act is not small. We call it the right of shelter. It is one of our oldest and most sacred traditions. To give your personal covering to a stranger, especially to a child, is to say that their life matters more than your comfort. It is to promise protection without asking for anything." Tai-ho did not know what to say. He had not thought about any of that. He had just seen a cold kid and done what felt right. Rail continued, "You did not know our ways. You did not know who Ven was. You expected nothing in return. This makes your act even more pure. In the eyes of our people, you have bound yourself to our deepest gratitude." The elder bowed again, even deeper than before. "The Villani do not forget kindness," Rail said, "and we do not leave debts unpaid. We have come to honor you, Park Tai-ho. We have come to give you a reward worthy of what you have done." Tai-ho felt uncomfortable. He did not like attention, and he did not like the idea of rewards. He was just a mechanic who fixed cars. He was nobody special. "I do not need a reward," he said. "I did not help the child for a reward." The two guards looked at each other. Even through their helmets, Tai-ho could sense their surprise. Rail was quiet for a long moment. "You refuse our gift?" "I did not do anything special," Tai-ho said. "Anyone would have done the same." Ven made a small sound. Tai-ho looked down at him and saw that the child was shaking his head. The meaning was clear. No, not anyone would have done the same. A door opened down the hallway. Mrs. Yoon, Tai-ho's elderly neighbor, poked her head out. She was a woman of 70 years with gray hair and sharp eyes. She looked at the aliens, looked at Tai-ho, and then looked at the aliens again. "Tai-ho," she said calmly, as if tall blue aliens were a normal thing to see on a Tuesday morning. "Are these your friends?" Tai-ho sighed. His quiet life was clearly over. "Something like that," he said. "Mrs. Yoon, please go back inside. I will explain later." Mrs. Yoon nodded slowly, but before she closed her door, she called out, "Tell your friends they cannot park their spaceship in the building parking lot. There are rules." Rail looked at Tai-ho with what might have been confusion. "Please," Tai-ho said, stepping back from his doorway. "Come inside. We should talk where there are less eyes watching." The aliens entered his small apartment, and Tai-ho closed the door behind them. He had a feeling that his life was about to change in ways he could not imagine. And he was right. Tai-ho's apartment had never felt so small. The two alien guards stood near the door, their tall bodies almost touching the ceiling. Rail sat on Tai-ho's old couch, looking strange and beautiful against the worn fabric. Young Ven sat on the floor, still wrapped in the leather jacket, looking around at everything with curious eyes. Tai-ho stood in his tiny kitchen, trying to remember how to make tea. His hands were shaking slightly, but he forced them to be steady. Making tea was something he could do. It was normal. It was simple. "Your home is very warm," Rail said. The elder's voice was gentle. "Our people value warmth greatly. A warm home means a good heart." Tai-ho looked around at his apartment. The walls needed painting. The furniture was old and cheap. He had bought most of it from second-hand stores. He had never thought of his home as anything special. "It is just a small place," he said. "Nothing important." Rael made that laughing sound again. "Importance is not about size, human. Importance is about what fills the space." Tejo brought the tea to the living room. He gave a cup to Rael and placed one on the floor near Ven. The guards did not move, and he did not offer them any. He was not sure if they even had mouse under those helmets. Rael held the teacup carefully, studying it with interest. "What is this drink?" "Tea," Tejo said. "It is warm. Good for cold mornings." Rael took a small sip and made a sound of approval. "Your people have good wisdom about warmth." Tejo sat down in his one chair, an old wooden thing that creaked when he moved. He looked at Rael directly. "I need to understand something," he said. "You said I did a sacred act. You said your people do not leave debts unpaid. What does that mean exactly?" Rael set down the teacup. The silver lines on the elder's face seemed to glow a little brighter. "Among the Villani," Rael began, "we believe that the universe is made of connections. Every act of kindness creates a thread. Every act of cruelty cuts one. When someone does something truly good, especially without expecting reward, they create a very strong thread. This thread must be honored." Tejo listened carefully. He did not fully understand, but he was trying. "When you gave your jacket to Ven," Rael continued, "you created such a thread. You did not know our customs. You did not know that the Villani consider personal coverings to be sacred. Our body heat is precious to us. Our coverings hold that heat, hold part of who we are. To give your covering to a stranger is to give part of yourself." Ven looked up at Tejo. The child's dark eyes were serious. "You gave part of yourself to a lost child on a cold night," Rael said. "You expected nothing. You did not even wait for thanks. In all my many years, I have rarely seen such pure kindness." Tejo felt his face getting hot. He was not used to such praise. He was not used to being called kind or good. He was just a man who fixed cars and lived alone. "It was cold," he said. The child was shaking. "What else could I do?" "Many things," Rael said. "You could have walked past. You could have pretended not to see. You could have been afraid of what was different and run away. Many beings in this universe would have done these things. But you did not." There was silence in the small apartment. Only the sound of the morning traffic outside broke the quiet. Rael leaned forward. "The High Council has sent me to offer you a reward. We can give you treasures beyond counting. We can give you technology that your world has never seen. We can give you a place among the stars, a home on any Villani world you choose. Name what you want, and if it is in our power, it is yours." Tejo thought about this for a long time. He thought about his life. He worked hard every day at the garage, earning just enough money to pay his rent and buy food. He had no family left. He had few friends. His life was simple and sometimes lonely. He could ask for money. He could ask for a better home. He could ask for things that would make his life easier. But something in his heart said no. "I told you before," Tejo said slowly. "I do not want a reward. I did not help Ven for a reward. I helped him because he needed help." Rael's silver lines flickered with something like confusion. "You truly want nothing?" "I did not say that," Tejo said. He looked at Ven, still small and young, still holding onto the jacket like it was precious. "I want to understand something first. How did Ven get lost? How did a child end up alone on a strange world?" Rael was quiet for a moment. Then the elder sighed, a sound that was very human. "Ven is curious," Rael said. "Like all young ones, he wants to explore. His father is a great leader, but he is also very busy. Ven sometimes feels lonely. During a science mission to study doors between worlds, Ven wandered away from his guards. He found an unstable door and fell through before anyone could stop him." Tejo looked at Ven. The child was not meeting his eyes, staring at the floor instead. Even without understanding the words, Ven seemed to know what they were talking about. "He was looking for something," Tejo said softly. "Something he was not finding at home." Rael nodded slowly. "You see clearly, human." Tejo thought about his own childhood. After his parents died, he had been sent to live with relatives who did not want him. He had felt lost and alone for many years. He knew what it was like to look for something you could not name. Among your people, Tejo said, are there other children like Ven? Children who get lost? Children who are alone? Rael's eyes widened slightly. Yes. Despite our advanced ways, there are always young ones who fall through the cracks. Orphans. Lost ones. Children whose parents cannot care for them. And on other worlds? Tejo asked. Other planets with other beings? Are there lost children there too? Rael was silent for a long moment. Yes, the elder finally said. The universe is vast and often cold. There are lost children everywhere. Tejo nodded. Something was forming in his mind. An idea. A purpose. You want to give me a reward, he said. You say the debt must be paid. Then let me tell you what I want. Rael leaned forward, listening intently. I do not want treasure, Tejo said. I do not want technology or a new home. But if your people travel to many worlds, if you meet many different beings, then I want you to do something. He paused, choosing his words carefully. When you find a child who is cold and alone, help them. When you find a young one who is lost and scared, give them warmth. Do not walk past. Do not pretend not to see. Take care of them, the way I tried to take care of Ven. Rael stared at Tejo. The elder's silver lines were glowing brightly now. You want us to create a program, Rael said slowly, a system to help lost children across worlds. Yes, Tejo said. That is what I want. If you must pay your debt, pay it to them. Pay it to all the cold and lonely children in the universe. Ven looked up at Tejo. Though the child did not understand all the words, something in his dark eyes showed that he understood the meaning. Rael was quiet for a very long time. Then slowly, the elder stood. The silver lines on Rael's face were glowing so brightly they lit up the room. In 300 years of life, Rael said, I have met many beings on many worlds. I have met warriors and leaders, scientists and artists. But I have never met anyone like you, Park Tejo. The elder bowed, lower than before. I must speak with the High Council, Rael said. I must tell them what you have asked. I believe they will agree. Your request honors us as much as it honors the children we will help. Tejo stood up as well. That is all I want. Rael looked at him with something like wonder. You truly are a strange being, human. You had the chance to ask for anything, and you asked for kindness to others. Tejo shrugged. I am just a mechanic, but I know what it is like to be cold and alone. No child should feel that way. Rael nodded slowly. No child should, and perhaps because of you, fewer children will. The elder turned to leave, gesturing to the guards. But Ven did not move. Ven must stay with me, Rael said gently to the child. Ven shook his head. He pointed at Tejo, then at himself. Rael and Tejo exchanged a look. It seems, Rael said, that young Ven does not want to leave you yet. Tejo looked down at the alien child. Something in his heart softened. He can stay for a while, he said, if it is allowed. Rael smiled, a strange expression on that blue face. I think it is more than allowed. I think it is meant to be. The elder left with the guards, leaving Tejo alone with Ven in his small apartment. The child looked up at him with those large dark eyes, still wearing the worn leather jacket. Tejo sighed and shook his head. Are you hungry? He asked, even though he knew Ven could not understand. Ven tilted his head, confused. Tejo walked to the kitchen and opened his refrigerator. Let us see if aliens like ramyun, he said. It was going to be a very strange day. 3 days passed and Tejo's life became something he did not recognize. It started with the news vans. Someone had seen the aliens enter his apartment building, and by afternoon, there were cameras everywhere. Reporters shouted questions at anyone who walked by. Helicopters circled overhead. The quiet street where Tejo had lived for 6 years was now the most famous place in the country. Then came the government people. Men and women in dark suits arrived in black cars. They wanted to talk to the aliens. They wanted to talk to Tejo. They had many questions. A woman named Baek Su-min became his main contact with the government. She was about his age, with sharp eyes and a calm voice. She was some kind of special liaison, trained to handle unusual situations. Taeho thought she must be very good at her job because she did not seem surprised by anything. The whole world is watching, she told him on the second day. They were sitting in his apartment while Ven played with a ball Taeho had found in his closet. The child seemed fascinated by how it bounced. I did not ask for the world to watch, Taeho said. He was very tired. He had barely slept since the aliens came. It does not matter what you asked for, Baek Sumin said. You are now the most important person on Earth. You are our first point of contact with an alien civilization. Everything depends on how this goes. Taeho watched Ven chase the ball across his small living room. The child moved differently than human children. His legs bent in slightly different places, and he was very fast when he wanted to be. I am just a mechanic, Taeho said for what felt like the 100th time. I fix cars. I do not know how to do diplomacy or politics. Baek Sumin looked at him for a long moment. Maybe that is exactly why this is working, she said. You are not trying to get anything from them. You are not playing games. You are just being yourself. Being myself means going to work and eating dinner alone, Taeho said, not talking to aliens and government officials. Well, she said with a small smile, your schedule has changed. The Villani had set up some kind of base near the edge of town. Their ship was hidden behind what Rael called a light-bending field, which meant humans could not see it. But they were still there, waiting. Rael came to visit every day. The elder was patient and kind, explaining Villani culture in careful detail. Taeho learned many things. He learned that the Villani came from a cold world where heat was precious and rare. Their bodies could survive temperatures that would kill humans, but they still craved warmth. Their whole society was built around sharing warmth with each other. He learned that Villani families were different from human families. Children were raised by the whole community, not just their parents. But this meant that sometimes children fell through the cracks. Sometimes they felt like they belonged to everyone and no one at the same time. He learned that Ven was one of those children. His father, the High Council leader, was a great man with great responsibilities. He loved Ven, but he was rarely home. Ven had grown up surrounded by guards and teachers, but often felt alone. He reminds me of myself, Taeho told Rael one evening. Ven was sleeping on the couch, wrapped in blankets and still wearing the leather jacket. He refused to take it off. How so? Rael asked. I lost my parents when I was young, Taeho said. I had people around me, but I still felt alone. I learned to take care of myself because I had no choice. Rael's silver lines dimmed slightly. I am sorry for your pain. Taeho shrugged. It was a long time ago, but I understand Ven. I understand why he wandered away. He was looking for something, a connection, a feeling that someone saw him, really saw him, not just as a duty. Rael was quiet for a while. You humans are strange, the elder finally said. You live such short lives, but you feel so deeply. You have been through pain, yet you still reach out to help others. I do not fully understand it. Neither do I, Taeho admitted. It is just what feels right. As the days passed, Ven grew more comfortable with Taeho. The child followed him everywhere, watching everything he did with curious eyes. Taeho could not go to work because of all the attention, so he stayed home. He started teaching Ven things. He taught Ven how to use chopsticks. It took many tries because Ven only had 4 fingers, but eventually the child figured out a way to hold them. Ven was very proud of himself. He taught Ven about Korean food. Aliens, it turned out, could eat human food, though their taste was different. Ven loved sweet things, especially hot hawk, the sweet pancakes sold by street vendors. Taeho had to sneak out at night to buy them because the reporters were always watching during the day. He taught Ven about football. They watched games together on Taeho's old television, and Ven became very excited whenever someone scored. The child would jump up and make a high sound that Taeho decided was Villani cheering. In return, Ven taught Taeho things too. Ven showed him how Villani wrote. Their writing was not like human writing. It was made of flowing lines that changed color depending on the emotion of the words. Sad words were blue. Happy words were gold. Angry words were red. Ven wrote Taeho's name in Villani script, and it glowed with a warm orange color. What does orange mean? Taeho asked through gestures. Ven put his hand on his chest, over his heart. Then he pointed at Taeho. Orange means warmth, Rael translated later. It means someone who makes you feel safe. Teho did not know what to say to that, so he said nothing. The world outside continued to go crazy. World leaders made statements. Scientists argued about what the alien contact meant. Religious groups had different opinions. Some people were scared. Some people were excited. Everyone had something to say. But inside Taiho's small apartment, things were simple. He cooked food. He watched football with an alien child. He tried to learn a few Villani words, though his pronunciation was terrible and made Ven laugh. Beck Suman came by often. She was supposed to be gathering information for the government, but Taiho noticed that she seemed to enjoy just sitting and talking. "You are good with him," she said one afternoon, watching Taiho help Ven with a puzzle. "Have you ever thought about having children?" Taiho shook his head. "My life was not right for children. I work too much. I live alone. I would not know how to be a father." "You seem to be doing fine right now," she said. Taiho looked at Ven. The child was concentrating hard on the puzzle, his blue tongue sticking out slightly. He looked happy, peaceful, very different from the scared, shivering creature Taiho had found in the rain. "Ven is not my child," Taiho said. "He has a father, a real father who loves him." "Yes," Suman said, "but sometimes children need more than one person to love them." Taiho did not answer, but he thought about her words for a long time. On the fourth day, Rael came with news. "The High Council has received your request," the elder said. "They have discussed it at great length, and they have made a decision." Taiho sat up straighter. Ven looked between them, sensing the importance of the moment. "They have agreed," Rael said. "They will create the program you asked for, a program to help lost and alone children across all worlds we visit. They will call it the Taiho Accord in your honor." Taiho felt something catch in his throat. "I did not ask for it to have my name. That was not your choice to make," Rael said gently. "It was ours. And there is more." The elder's silver lines were glowing brightly. "The High Council leader himself will come to Earth," Rael said. "Ven's father. He wishes to meet the human who saved his son and who asked for kindness as his reward." Taiho looked at Ven. The child's eyes had gone very wide. "When?" Taiho asked. "Tomorrow," Rael said. "He is already on his way." Ven made a small sound, something between excitement and fear. Taiho understood. It was one thing to be away from a parent. It was another thing to face them after running away. He put his hand on Ven's shoulder, trying to give comfort. "It will be okay," he said. Ven looked up at him, and somehow, despite not sharing a language, the child understood. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Tomorrow would bring answers and maybe more questions. But tonight, they were safe and warm. And sometimes, Taiho thought, that was enough. The sky above the city split open like a wound of light. Taiho watched from the rooftop of his apartment building, along with Ven, Rael, and Baek Soo-min. Below them, thousands of people had gathered in the streets, looking up. Around the world, billions more watched through their screens. The door between worlds, Rael had called it. A portal that connected distant stars. It hung in the sky like a circle of pure gold, beautiful and terrifying. A ship came through. It was larger than anything Taiho had ever seen. It was not shaped like human ships, not like an airplane or a rocket. It was curved and flowing, like something alive. Its surface changed colors as it moved, shifting from silver to purple to deep blue. "The sovereign vessel," Rael said quietly, "the personal ship of the High Council leader. It has not visited another world in over 200 years. The ship descended slowly, gracefully, coming to rest in a field outside the city. The government had prepared the area, pushing back the crowds, setting up barricades. But no preparation could have made this feel normal." An hour later, Taiho stood in a large tent that had been set up near the landing site. Government officials from many countries were there. Military leaders, scientists, important people with important titles. Taiho felt out of place in his simple clothes. He had tried to find something nicer to wear, but nothing fit right. So he had put on his cleanest shirt and his least worn pants and hoped it was enough. Ven stood beside him, holding his hand. The child was trembling slightly, not from cold this time, but from nerves. "It will be okay," Taiho said for the 10th time. He was not sure if he was trying to comfort Ven or himself. The tent flap opened and the Villani entered. There were many of them. Guards in black armor, officials in colored robes, advisors and assistants. They moved in perfect formation, parting like water to make a path. And then he came through. Commandant Oren, High Council leader of the Vallani Federation. He was tall, even taller than Rael. His blue skin was darker, like the deep ocean. The silver lines on his face were thick and complex, covering him like a map of power. His eyes were the same large dark eyes as Ven's. But where Ven's eyes were innocent, Oren's eyes had seen things beyond human understanding. He wore robes of pure white, shining with an inner light. On his chest was a symbol that Teho recognized. It was the same symbol that was on the jacket he had given Ven, the symbol of the High Council. The tent went silent. Every human in the room seemed to stop breathing. Oren walked forward, and the crowd parted before him. World leaders stepped aside. Military generals moved out of his way. He walked past them all without looking, his eyes fixed on one person, Teho. The High Council leader stopped in front of the human mechanic. For a long moment, they just looked at each other, two very different beings from two very different worlds. Then Oren spoke. His voice was deep and powerful, filling the tent like thunder. A translator device spoke the words in Korean a moment later. "You are Park Tae-ho, the one who gave warmth to my son." Tae-ho straightened his back. He would not show fear. "Yes, I am." Oren looked down at Ven. The child was still holding Tae-ho's hand, still wearing the leather jacket. The High Council leader's face changed. Some of the hardness left it. "Ven," Oren said, his voice softer now. "My child." Ven looked up at his father. His dark eyes were filled with many emotions: fear, hope, love, guilt. Slowly, Ven let go of Tae-ho's hand and walked toward his father. Oren knelt down, bringing himself to the child's level. He opened his arms. Ven ran into them. Father and son held each other. Oren's eyes closed, and something like pain crossed his ancient face. The powerful leader of a starfaring civilization looked, in that moment, like any other parent who had almost lost a child. "I was afraid," Ven said in Vallani. The translator picked up his small voice. "I was alone and scared, but he found me. He gave me his covering. He kept me warm." Oren looked at Tae-ho over his son's shoulder. There was something new in those dark eyes now. Something like gratitude. Something like respect. The High Council leader stood, keeping one hand on Ven's shoulder. He walked closer to Tae-ho until they were arm's length apart. "I have ruled the Federation for 300 years, Oren said. "I have met kings and queens, warriors and wise ones, beings of power from 1,000 worlds. But none of them have done what you did." Tae-ho did not know what to say. He felt very small standing before this ancient being. "You found my son, lost and alone in a strange world," Oren continued. "You did not know who he was. You did not know what he was. You only knew that he was cold, and you gave him warmth at cost to yourself." "It was just a jacket," Tae-ho said. Oren shook his head. "It was everything. You could have walked past. You could have been afraid of what was different. Instead, you showed kindness, pure, simple kindness." He paused. "Do you know how rare that is in this universe?" Tae-ho thought about the question. He thought about all the people who had walked past him when he was young and struggling. He thought about all the times he had felt invisible. "Maybe not rare," he said slowly. "Maybe just hidden. Maybe there is kindness everywhere, but people are afraid to show it." Oren studied him for a long moment. "Perhaps you are right. Perhaps that is what makes your world special. You have not forgotten how to be kind." The High Council leader turned to address the room. All the world leaders and officials had been watching in silence. "I have heard the request of Park Tae-ho," Oren said, his voice carrying to every corner. "He was offered treasure. He was offered technology. He was offered power and position. He refused all of it." The room was utterly silent. Instead, he asked that the Vallani help lost and alone children across all worlds. He asked that we share warmth with those who have none. Oren paused. "I have never received such a request in 300 years of leadership." He turned back to Tae-ho. "Your request is granted," Oren said. The Villani Federation will create a program to protect vulnerable young ones across the galaxy. It will be named in your honor. The Tai-Ho Accord will stand for as long as our civilization exists. Taeho felt his legs go weak. He had not truly believed it would happen. He had just asked for what felt right. There is more, Orin said. You have shown that humans are capable of great goodness. Because of you, the Federation will open talks with your world. We will share knowledge and friendship with Earth. Your people will no longer be alone in the stars. A murmur went through the crowd. This was bigger than anyone had expected. This was first contact in the truest sense. Orin reached out and placed his hand on Tai-Ho's shoulder. The touch was warm, warmer than human skin. Among my people, Orin said, when someone saves a child, they become connected to that child's family forever. You gave warmth to my son. By our law, you are now part of our house. Taeho did not know what to say. Ven stepped forward, looking up at both his father and Taeho. I told you, the child said. You are my brother now. Orin smiled. It was a strange expression on that alien face, but unmistakable. My son has chosen well. Taeho looked at Ven, then at Orin. He thought about his empty apartment. He thought about his years of loneliness. He thought about how he had always felt like he did not belong anywhere. I am honored, he finally said. His voice was thick with emotion he could not hide. I am truly honored. Orin nodded slowly. The honor is ours, Park Taeho. The honor is ours. Outside the tent, the sun was setting. The alien ship glowed softly in the fading light. Two worlds so different from each other had taken their first step toward friendship. And it had all started with a jacket on a rainy night. 3 weeks had passed since Orin's arrival, and the world was different. Every news channel talked about the Villani. Every government was having meetings. Every person on Earth had an opinion about what should happen next. Some were hopeful, some were afraid. Everyone was curious. But for Tai-Ho, life had become strangely quiet. He was back at his garage fixing cars. His boss had given him time off during the craziest days, but eventually, Taeho had asked to return. He needed something normal. He needed to work with his hands and think about simple things like engines and oil. The government had offered him many things: money, a new home, a position as a special advisor. He had refused all of it. I am a mechanic, he told Baek Soo-min when she asked why. I like being a mechanic. I do not want to sit in meetings and talk about things I do not understand. She had looked at him with something like wonder. You might be the only person on Earth who would turn down what you have been offered. Probably, he agreed. The Tai-Ho Accord was being organized. The Villani were serious about their promise. They had already started gathering resources, training workers, building shelters on worlds Tai-Ho could not even imagine. The Federation had many allies among the stars, and word was spreading about the human who had asked for kindness instead of treasure. Rael visited Tai-Ho often. The elder had decided to stay on Earth as an ambassador. They would sit in Tai-Ho's apartment, drinking tea and talking about nothing important. Tai-Ho found that he enjoyed the company. Do you ever regret your choice? Rael asked one evening. You could have asked for anything. You could have been the richest human alive. Taeho thought about it. No, he said. What would I do with treasure? Buy a bigger apartment? I do not need a big apartment. I am only one person. You could have asked for longer life, Rael suggested. Our medical technology can extend your years greatly. Taeho shook his head. A long life means nothing if it is empty. I would rather have a short life with meaning than a long life without it. Rael's silver lines glowed softly. You continue to surprise me, human. Ven had returned to the Villani homeworld with his father, but they talked often through a communication device Rael had given Taeho. The device was small and round, and when activated, it showed a floating image of whoever was calling. Ven called every few days. He showed Taeho his room, his toys, his lessons. He talked about his father, who was spending more time with him now. Something had changed between them after Ven's adventure on Earth. Orin was trying harder to be present. Father says I must learn to be a leader, Ven said during one call. He says I will have responsibilities when I'm older, but I told him I also want to be kind, like you. Tejo smiled at the floating image of the blue-skinned boy. You can be both. You can be a leader and be kind. In fact, I think the best leaders are the kind ones. Do you really think so? I do, Tejo said. Kindness is not weakness. It takes strength to be kind, especially when it is difficult. Ven was quiet for a moment. I miss you, Hyung. Hyung. Older brother. Ven had learned the Korean word and used it every time they talked now. I miss you too, Tejo said. But we will see each other again. Your father promised. The Velani and Earth were working on official agreements now. There would be exchanges of knowledge, of culture, of people. Humans would visit Velani worlds. Velani would visit Earth. It would take time, but the foundation was being built. Baek Soo-min had become a regular visitor too. She was busy with her government work, but she always found time to stop by the garage or his apartment. Taeho was not sure why she kept coming. They talked about simple things, ate simple food, watched football on his old television. You should get a bigger TV, she said one evening. You are famous now, you can afford it. This TV works fine, Taeho said. It shows the football. What more do I need? She laughed. It was a nice laugh. You are impossible. I am consistent, he corrected. There is a difference. One day a letter arrived at the garage. It was written on paper, which was strange because most people sent messages through phones now. The handwriting was careful and neat. The letter was from a teacher in a small town far away. She wrote that she had heard about what Taeho did. She wrote that his story had inspired her students. She wrote that one of her students, a quiet boy who never spoke much, had started helping younger children at school after hearing about the Taeho Accord. He said he wants to give warmth to others, the teacher wrote. He said if a simple act could change the galaxy, then maybe his simple acts could change something too. Taeho read the letter 3 times. Then he folded it carefully and put it in his drawer, next to his mother's old photograph. More letters came. Emails, messages, stories from all over the world. A woman in another country wrote that she had started volunteering at an orphanage after hearing his story. A man wrote that he had reconnected with his estranged son, realizing that being present was more important than being successful. A group of students wrote that they had started a project to make warm clothes for homeless people in their city. Small acts, simple kindness, spreading like ripples in water. Taeho did not know what to do with all these messages. He was not a speaker or a leader. He did not have wisdom to share. He was just a man who had given his jacket to a cold child. But maybe, he thought, that was the point. Maybe it did not take a hero to make a difference. Maybe it just took a person willing to act. On the day before Ven was scheduled to visit Earth again, Taeho received a special delivery. A Velani shuttle landed quietly behind his apartment building, and a guard brought him a large box. Inside the box was a jacket. But not just any jacket. It was made of something the Velani called thermal silk. The material was impossibly soft and light, but it held warmth like nothing on Earth. The color was deep black, like the space between stars. And on the inside, stitched in golden thread that glowed faintly, was Taeho's name in Velani script. There was a note with it, written in Korean. Dear Taeho, this jacket is a gift from the children of the Accord. They wanted to give you something, but they did not know what to give a man who wants nothing. So they decided to give you warmth, the way you gave warmth to our brother Ven. This jacket was made by 1,000 hands across 100 worlds. Each child who has been helped by the Accord put one stitch into it. Each stitch is a thank you. Each stitch is a prayer for your happiness. You are not alone anymore, Taeho. You have a family now, a family that stretches across the stars. With love, the children of the Taeho Accord. Taeho held the jacket in his hands. It weighed almost nothing, but it felt heavier than anything he had ever carried. He thought about the jacket he had given Ven, his mother's old leather jacket, now sitting in a Velani museum as a sacred artifact. He thought about all the cold nights he had worn it, feeling her memory wrapped around him. Now he had a new jacket, made by children he would never meet, from worlds he could not imagine. Each stitch a connection, each thread a bond. He put it on. The warmth spread through him instantly, soft and gentle. For the first time in many years, Taeho felt tears on his face. He was still just a mechanic. He still lived in a small apartment. He still ate ramen alone and watched football on his old TV. But he was not alone anymore. He never had been, he realized. The universe was full of people reaching out, looking for connection, hoping to find warmth. Sometimes all it took was one small act to bring them together. Tai-Ho wiped his eyes and looked at himself in the mirror. A simple man in an extraordinary jacket. He smiled. Tomorrow, Ven would arrive. There was much to look forward to. 1 year had passed since the rainy night that changed everything. Tai-Ho woke up early that morning, as he always did. The autumn sun was just beginning to rise, painting his small apartment in golden orange. He lay in bed for a moment, listening to the sounds of the city waking up. Cars starting, birds singing, life continuing as it always did. He got up and made himself coffee. His routine had not changed much over the past year. He still worked at the garage. He still ate simple food. He still watched football on weekends, though his TV was slightly bigger now. Beck Su-min had finally convinced him to upgrade. Su-min. He thought about her and smiled. She came to dinner twice a week now. They talked about everything and nothing. She made him laugh, which was something he had almost forgotten how to do. "You should ask her to marry you," Mrs. Yoon had said last week, poking her head out of her apartment door as usual. The old woman missed nothing. "Mind your own business," Tai-Ho had replied, but he had been thinking about it. His apartment was different now too. There were pictures on the walls, photos of him with Ven, photos of him with Rael and other Villani friends. A photo of him at the official opening of the Tai-Ho Accord headquarters on the Villani homeworld. He had not wanted to go, but Oren had insisted. "You must see what you have created," the High Council leader had said. "The children want to meet you." And so Tai-Ho had traveled through a portal between worlds. He had walked on alien soil. He had seen skies with 3 moons and cities that floated on clouds. He had met children of many species, all wearing the symbol of the Accord. They had crowded around him, wanting to touch him, wanting to thank him. He had felt embarrassed and awkward the whole time, but he had also felt something else. Pride, maybe, or purpose, or the simple joy of seeing good things happen. The Accord had grown beyond anything Tai-Ho could have imagined. There were shelters on 50 worlds now. Thousands of children had been helped. Teams of caretakers traveled the galaxy, looking for lost young ones, giving them warmth and protection. And it had all started with a jacket. Sometimes reporters still came to interview him. He always said the same things. "I did not do anything special. I just helped a child who was cold. Anyone could have done it." They never believed him. They wanted a hero, a symbol, a legend. But Tai-Ho was just Tai-Ho. He fixed cars, he ate ramen, he watched football. He was ordinary and he was fine with that. Today was special though. Today was the anniversary. 1 year since he had found Ven shivering in the rain. Tai-Ho put on the thermal silk jacket. He wore it often now, especially on cold days. It still amazed him how warm it was, how light. He sometimes imagined he could feel the love of all the children who had made it, stitched into every thread. He was expecting visitors today. Rael had called yesterday to tell him, but he did not know exactly when they would arrive. So he waited. He drank his coffee. He watched the morning news, which still talked about the ongoing cooperation between Earth and the Villani. Trade agreements, cultural exchanges. The first human students were going to study at Villani schools next year. The world was changing, slowly, carefully, but definitely changing. Around noon, the air in Tai-Ho's living room began to shimmer. He had seen this before. He set down his coffee cup and stood up. A small circle of light appeared, growing larger. It was a personal portal, the kind that only very important people could use. The energy required was enormous. A figure stepped through the light. Ven. But not the Ven that Tai-Ho remembered. This Ven was taller, reaching past Tai-Ho's chest now. The child had grown quickly over the past year. Villani children matured faster than human children, Rael had explained. Ven was wearing formal robes of deep blue and silver. On his chest was the symbol of the High Council, just like his father's. He looked dignified, mature like a young prince. But when he saw Tai-Ho, all that dignity disappeared. His face split into a wide smile and he ran forward. "Hyung!" Ven shouted, crashing into Tai-Ho with a hug. Tai-Ho laughed and hugged him back. "You have grown so much. I almost did not recognize you. Ven pulled back, still grinning. Father says I will be as tall as him someday. Maybe taller. I believe it, Tejo said. You are eating well? Yes, but Earth food is better. Do they still sell haddock near your home? They do. We will get some later. More figures came through the portal. Rael looking the same as always, silver lines glowing with pleasure. Some of the guards. And finally Orin himself, the High Council leader, stepping into Taiho's small living room like he belonged there. Park Taiho, Orin said, inclining his head. It is good to see you again. Commandant, Taiho replied, bowing slightly. You honor my home. Any home of yours is a place of honor, Orin said. My son speaks of nothing but you. His human brother this, his human brother that. Taiho looked at Ven, who was not embarrassed at all. The boy just nodded proudly. They sat together in Taiho's small living room. It was crowded with all the aliens, but no one seemed to mind. Rael made tea, having learned how to use Taiho's simple kitchen. Orin sat on the old couch, somehow making it look like a throne. I bring news, Orin said. The council has voted. Earth will officially join the Federation as an associate member next year. Your world will have representation. You will have access to our knowledge and our protection. Taiho nodded slowly. He had heard rumors about this. But hearing it confirmed was different. That is good, I think. You think? Orin raised an eyebrow. I hope my people will be ready, Taiho said honestly. We are not always good at getting along with each other. I do not know how we will handle getting along with the whole galaxy. Orin smiled slightly. That is why we are starting slowly, and why we have friends like you to help show the way. Ven leaned forward eagerly. Tell him the other news, father. Orin looked at his son with affection. Patience, young one. He turned back to Taiho. There is something else. The Accord has asked if you would be willing to become its official Earth representative. You would help coordinate the programs on your world. You would work with both humans and Villani. Taiho blinked. Me? I am just a mechanic. You are the founder of the Accord, Orin said. No one else should hold this position. But I do not know how to run programs. I do not know about politics or organization. Rael spoke up. You would have help, many helpers. Your role would be to guide, to inspire, to remind everyone why the Accord exists. You would not have to give up your garage. You would not have to change who you are. Taiho thought about it. He thought about the letters he still received, the stories of small kindnesses spreading across the world. He thought about the children who had no one to help them. Can I still fix cars? He asked. Orin laughed, a deep and genuine sound. If you wish. Taiho looked at Ven. The boy was watching him with hope in his dark eyes. Okay, Taiho said. I will do it. But I want everyone to understand that I am not special. I am just a person who tried to do the right thing. That is exactly why you are special, Ven said. They spent the rest of the day together. They ate haddock from the street vendor. They walked through the neighborhood. They talked about the past year and the years to come. Before they left, Ven gave Taiho one more gift. It was a pendant, similar to the one Ven wore. 2 pieces of the same whole. So we are always connected, Ven said, across any distance. Taiho put the pendant on. It was warm against his chest. Thank you, Ven, he said, for everything. Thank you, Hyung, Ven replied, for finding me on that cold night. They hugged one more time. Then Ven stepped back through the portal with his father and the others. The light faded, and Taiho was alone in his apartment again. But he did not feel alone. He looked around at the photos on his walls. He touched the pendant on his chest. He felt the warmth of the thermal silk jacket on his shoulders. 1 year ago, he had been a lonely man with a simple life. Now he had a family that stretched across the stars. He had a purpose that would outlive him. He had friends and connections he had never imagined possible. And it had all started because he could not walk past a shivering child. Taiho smiled and sat down on his old couch. The evening sun was setting outside his window, painting the sky in golden red. Tomorrow he would go back to work at the garage. He would fix cars and eat lunch alone and do all the ordinary things he had always done. But he would also carry something new with him. A knowledge that kindness mattered, that small acts could change the universe, that no one was truly alone. Across the galaxy, children were being helped. Warmth was being shared, Hope was being spread, and somewhere in the stars a boy named Ven was looking up at the sky, thinking of his human brother. The ripples continued to spread. They always would.